Does your autistic young adult have angry outbursts and swings in their mood where we're just left wondering, what can we do to help this? I'd like to offer you some options to consider. The first thing we want to do, though, is remind ourselves that what what the end is. We want to keep the end in mind. And what we want to do is help our autistic young adults practice the set of mental tools that help them manage their emotions and their actions so that they can achieve the goals that they want in their lives. And keeping that in mind, we're going to follow Barb Avila's process that she outlines beautifully in her book, Seeing Autism, of understanding what's going on, connecting with ourselves and our autistic young adult, and then figuring out what is the practice to help encourage them to manage these swings better and therefore become more do adulting more often. So the first step of understanding what's going on is to actually figure out, why is this difficult for our autistic young adults? What's making this, why has this become an unsolved problem? And in the words of Dr. Ross Green, when there's an unsolved problem, there's a lagging skill. So the skill I suggest that is lagging here is judgment. And we've learned from Dr. Sharon Saline that this is the part of the brain that develops last. And so it makes sense that our kids who may be in their early 20s through maybe even their second, that 20th, their third decade, that they may struggle with this because these are not skills that they picked up naturally just by osmosis. Our kids don't pick up things by osmosis and just by what's going on around them. And then on top of that, our kids tend to have worry brains that put them into that fear emotion often when they are just afraid of what's going to happen next and they have no confidence that they can handle it, which blocks their learning. And so we just have to recognize that what's happening here is a result of the brain that they have. All right, so now that we know what's going on and why, let's connect with both ourselves and with them. And the best thing we want to do is to really, really listen to what's going on. So our daughter's therapist, during his residency, and was at a psychiatric ward, was called to a room where a young adult was holding a chair over his head, ready to just smash it down. And he came and looked that autistic young adult in the eye and said, "You are really angry." And he said that the chair slowly came down. Our autistic young adults really want to be seen by us. Isn't that what we all want? And they really want to be heard. And by noticing and reflecting the emotion that they're experiencing, we can show them that we both see them and hear them. It seems like you're angry because you're not getting what you want. It can be as short and as sweet as that. We don't want to parrot their words because sometimes that can feel like mocking, but we want to summarize it up in less than 15 words is my rule of thumb. And that's not so easy because when we're in these types of situations, we are excited ourselves. Our arousal level is kind of high. I mean, who wants to be screamed at? So what we have to do is we have to take in the message, sort it out, sum it up, and say it back succinctly in our own words while we're kind of, in that fear place too. So know that this is hard for us, and it's equally hard for our autistic young adults to really hear what we have to say when we're in a heightened place, Because again, when we're all in that fear spot, our mammalian brain has taken over and it's decided to keep us safe, which means it's not going to solve the problem. It's not going to tell us to look to the prefrontal cortex to solve the problem. So that's why this is so perplexing. So how do we get past that? Okay, so now we've reflected and now we have gotten out of that particular situation. Hopefully, the reflection of the emotion has helped things sort of simmer down, and we just reflect, reflect, reflect until our autistic young adults really feel heard. And we notice what's going on in our own inner dialogue, and we figure out the best way to think for us to stay to be the kind of parent that is encouraging, warning only when necessary, and there to coach our young adults, to be consulted by our young adults. So we practice noticing our own steer maps, where we look at, these are the facts of the situation. There's my child, obviously, in a heightened state. All right, that's going to make me think, what's going on? My emotion is worry, concern, my actions. Hopefully, at this point, we're going to train ourselves to practice listening so that the result can be, I'll figure out what's going on. Notice how that figuring out what's going on is going to tie back to that thought of, I don't understand what's going on. If we do the action of reflecting, then our result will be that we will figure out what's going on. And that helps us notice our own steer maps. And then we can imagine what's going on with them. What is the fact that has triggered the thoughts that are getting him or her at an highly aroused state, where they're just so fearful or unhappy that they are lashing out, and the result is that they're not getting their needs met either way, because it's really hard to figure out what needs to be done when you're in such a heightened state. And unfortunately, when we see them in the heightened state, we tend to tell them what's going to be happening next. And that's not what they want. They want us to support their thinking and what they believe are the right next steps for them. But we can't do that when we're in that heightened state. So what we want to do, of course, is borrow the collaborative problem solving, proactive solving solutions that Dr. Russ Green advocates, where we agree on the facts, we listen to their steer map, we present our steer map. Yes, hon, but we really need for you to learn how to manage your emotions, your thinking better, so that, when you're in a job or in a relationship, or who knows what's going to happen over the next 150 years of your life, 60, 70 years of your life. We want you to be the adult who can manage themselves the way they want to in any given situation. That's going to be ours. And then, of course, we're going to try and figure out what are the next steps. Their thoughts, our thoughts come together. How are we going to link those two together to figure out what we want to practice next? Because we really want to co-create this solution together, because that helps us help them know that it's normal to not know what to do next, that we're allowed to have mistakes and failures. In fact, we're encouraged to have them, because the person who's successful has probably failed more than the person who isn't successful, because they're willing to deal with the consequences, the difficulty of failure, and learn from it. And then we're going to keep that parent young adult relationship as strong as we can by being responsive and authentic and consistent and committed and solutions oriented. I mean, that's our vision of where we want to go with our autistic young adult. And I'm hoping that that also is where they want to go. I mean, they want to be responsive. They want to be responsible. They want to respond in the way that works best for them, and still stay true to themselves, and practice it enough where it becomes more automatic, and they're committed to being who they really want to be and creating a result that really does work for them over the long haul. so that that life that they're creating is one they love, and it works. And it, solution oriented together is the whole idea, is that when we come together, we can do a much better job coming up with a better solution for all of us. I'm inspired by Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he says, quote, the more genuine the involvement, the more sincere and sustained the participation in analyzing and solving problems, the greater the release of everyone's creativity and of their commitment to what they create. I see my typo there. It's okay. I'm allowed to make mistakes. And he's no longer with us, but I really admire the way that he created the 7 Habits book. It's such a classic, and it's really worth seeing what he taught and how it could apply to our situations today. Please join me anytime you can at the art of adulting at lindsaydavison.com/blog. You'll see a replay of this, and explore around and look at all the other blogs that I've created with my suggestions on things to consider when we're trying to solve these problems with our autistic young adults together. Bye for now.